What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Die Is podcast. My name is Alex, and I'm here with
Justin
and Nick.
And I always want to let you guys say your own names because
I would
you cut in
no
one day, so I don't want to steal your thunder.
It felt like a quiz, and I was nervous. I think.
When you get called on in class, right?
Yeah. So I wanted to start out this podcast by talking about what we're playing, which I think we've done a couple times. So, what are you on right now, Justin?
So I'm playing Beasts of Chaos.
Yep.
The kind of Dan Bradshaw ripped off list where it's a lot of Dragon Ogres and then a lot of Zinchi, Zangor Enlightened, Zangor, and like one Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, and then just one foot hero, Bray Shaman. And what I'm really trying, I'm playing all herds, so I'm trying to constantly summon. That's my goal, is to get as many points as possible on summoning and bring on like 3 Enlightened every turn after turn 2. Which we'll get into our tournaments a little bit. Was relatively successful with that. But now I'm actually going to move more into Dragon Ogres, drop out the regular Zangor, and just be Dragon Ogres and Enlightened.
This is the first time I've seen you. We were talking about after the tournament, you like what you want to play next, and you're like, I don't think I'm done yet.
No, I think it's a really fun army. I don't think I gave it enough play beforehand. Not that I probably did make a bunch of mistakes, but nothing that sticks out like fundamentally to me. But it's crafty. There's like a lot of stuff you have to get really good at, like doing combat. Like how many battles do I have so I can set up the Zangor?
Right.
I need to be very careful about who I let in. If I kill this enemy, does that force them to attack over here? So you're always kind of thinking about that, which is different than when I talked about Nurgle a lot when I was moving forward.
Yeah.
And then like rolling charges and rolling 5-ups. Now, Nurgle's fun and great, and I miss the army sometimes but Beast of Chaos just brings something a little different. Yeah.
Every time you put a model away, you're like, this could be Nurgle.
Yeah, right? I did no 5-ups.
Nick, what are you playing?
I've been on Nighthaunt pretty regularly, pretty consistently for the past month and a half.
Did you ever run the Purple Sun?
Occasionally I dabble with the Purple Sun in my Nighthaunt. Yeah, pretty good. But I think right now I'm making a hard pivot into Skaven. I just got a bunch of Skaven in. They're nicely painted. There's a few things that I need to add and get painted up to really round out the list, but I'm really excited about Skaven. I love the way that book comes together, the different mixing and matching you can do with the different hero types, and the different ways you can lean in that book if you want to go the kind of the alpha strike, or if you want to go heavy bodies or big shooting with storm fiends. So I love the different things you can do there, and I'm excited to try it all out, I guess.
For sure. We didn't get a real thorough discussion on Skaven, but they really fixed that book up as far as how the leaders coordinate with now the abilities of your battle line and the rest of your army, right?
It went from maybe the most restrictive list building, because you had to run all one faction in order to unlock your battle line, to one of the least restrictive list building options, where you can really weigh your options, pull in one piece of this, one piece of that, and mix them together. So I love what they did with the book.
Cool.
Yeah, I've been bouncing back and forth between Seraphon and Lumineth.
You just got a beautiful.
I did. I just got a really nicely painted Lumineth army from Justin for
via
pennies on the dollar.
Via Dakota.
Yeah.
So shout out to him. He really hooked it up for me, and then, I was able to pass on the savings to my friend.
Yeah. So I finally have a Lumineth army which is painted, which knocks out the thing I hate most.
Your hobby goals for 2022.
Yeah. So I now have a fully painted army, and I'm gonna just play them. I'm definitely playing them on the channel sometime soon. So, but I've been on Seraphon too. Thunder Lizard's still super strong.
Yeah, absolutely
awesome.
Trying to find a way to make my lists work in the new GHB, because it's hard. It's really hard to get battle tactics with a bunch of really slow, big lizards
that want to stay back and shoot.
Yeah, that people are pushing into their own territory, which we'll talk about more with the tournament discussion for our 2-day that we did last week.
Yeah.
But yeah, just bouncing between those two books. Lumineth is going to get a new book here soon, so just trying to savor every moment while I still have it.
Yeah, just trying to keep your models together in Shining Company and not get too wild.
Yeah, you know how exciting that is too. push all your spears together and watch you try to charge with anything.
And have any low bravery armies just cry. Alex graciously offered to play my Beast of Chaos with his Lumineth. I quickly thanked him and said no because I couldn't imagine a more awful time to have.
I didn't realize how low your bravery was in that army
so
until I started looking at your war scrolls, and I was like, "Ooh, this might be a bad matchup for you."
And I need my command points so bad, and you just be like, "Nah, just everything's just
two for one."
Yes, two.
Yeah. So that's what I'm playing. Talking about going into like what the meta looks like right now, especially with the new GHB. We played in 2 tournaments. You only did one, but one 2 weekends ago and then one this last weekend. But
hardcore players to be in the competitive edge right here.
But how do you guys feel like the meta is shaping out with this new GHB, and why is it focused solely on the Purple Sun?
So it's super different, right?
Right.
It is incredibly, 2 weekends ago was the first time I played the GHB at all, and it is very different.
Yeah.
I don't know that the top armies will have changed very much in terms of what factions they are.
I don't think you can. Suns probably isn't great anymore. Right?
Well, but I don't think Suns was particularly good
Sure.
at the end of the last General's Handbook either. But I think the same factions are still going to be there. But I think list building is going to be pretty warped by the presence of bounty hunters. I think that there's a lot of things that people are going to do to avoid running veterans or run min veterans, and it feels like that's where the meta is going, is really avoiding the downside of bounty hunters coming into you.
So if you guys are going to another tournament next weekend, what are the top 4 armies you have in mind that when you're building whatever list you're going to play, you're keeping in mind, I have to beat these 4 armies?
Are we talking about the 4 strongest armies or the 4 armies we think we're most likely to see?
I would say that there's some overlap there.
There is.
In the diagram, but I would say let's start with the strongest armies and then what we think is most likely to see.
I think Nurgle is maybe top of the heap still.
Yeah. All those flies have not changed at all.
No.
They
Maybe gotten
fit
better.
beautifully in bounty hunters.
They do. With just a bucket of attacks.
Yeah, and I played against Nurgle in both of my tournaments, and it's an uphill struggle, just like it always has been.
Yeah, and they are not so worried about their saves innately. So if they're getting -1 rendered by what we'll talk about soon, which is Purple Sun, or if they are taking a bunch of -1s from a Night Hunt charge, which we're not going to hide anything. Night Hunt's going to be another army we talk about as being one of the top 4. They're not going to care as much. They're going to rely on that 5-up after save and hope to stay around, and then they're going to dish their mortal wounds back.
And Nurgle is relatively elite. There's not a ton of models on the field, but losing a fly to a Purple Sun is not the most devastating thing in the world, right? It's not like losing a clutch monster or a very expensive and important support hero or something like that.
Right.
I'm just remembering Austin had that guy rally 2 flies back. Oh, that's rough.
Got to roll your 5-up, right? Well, that was at least
yeah.
I think that was the 5-up round.
Yeah,
the
5-up rally battle plan. Seraphon's probably going to be up there.
I think Seraphon, if I had to pick what I think is the #1 strongest army, and maybe has been for a year and a half and counting at this
2 years
point.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think it is Seraphon coming out of the General's Handbook, probably in Coalesced, able to dodge the downside of bounty hunters, with Purple Sun supporting what is a very good shooting castle, reliable caster, reliable unbinder, and Croaker the Slan. They are well poised to be on the top of this meta.
Well, we've moved into a way more magic is super important again because everybody wants to either cast a Purple Sun or stop someone from casting a Purple Sun.
And not just Purple Sun. There's a handful of them
that
are
so you got
really
Cogs,
impactful. Horrorghast, Ravanax.
What's the one we saw from OBR that was really effective? +1 and
the OBR hit Horrorghast. Their Horrorghast.
Yeah.
Right? there's a bunch of endless spells that are now way better than they were.
Yep.
And so magic
Lao
dominance
Shan,
is really
we'll
strong.
see a lot.
Lao Shan, absolutely.
And so now they can dish out their mortal wounds too, which if you're running like min units like Nighthawk does, or
or maybe 14 units of big stabas, something
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Now you're forcing battle shocks all over the place. It's just a very strong army, and it's still Bounty Hunters doesn't kill it like it hurts a lot of other armies because it's still reducing damage.
Yeah, and having board wide denies with Salon
that's awesome.
Is really awesome, and the ability to not lose your endless spells outside of 30. It didn't come up that much when we were playing, but doing the castling that Thunder Lizards likes to do, you can send your endless spells wherever.
Right, board
Don't
wide.
worry about it. Yeah.
You've also got the option with the skink to steal an enemy.
Oh,
endless
Yeah,
spell, so.
it's hard. It's hard to pick that one over Hand of Glory.
Sure,
and Thunder
it
Lizards
is.
list, but runs 2 Skink Starkers. And you're
Yeah.
good to go.
So Seraphon, Nighthaunt, which we didn't really get into, but Nighthaunt, their just ability with Cruel Gas to tank wounds.
Yeah.
That they never worry about run. That they can run the Purple Sun at no risk almost to themselves. As far as sure, they might have to roll a 6 up or a 1 on occasion, but the run is just so great for them, and they just ignore it.
They've got great options to run in Bounty Hunters. They've got great options to run as Expert Conquerors, and then, like you mentioned, the Cruel Gas to be able to mitigate that downside and take a lot of terrifying hammers and kind of soften them and weather through them. The more elite the meta gets, the better Nighthaunt is.
Yeah, they're great defensively. They're really good at magic. They have extremely good offensive. They have the only thing they lack is shooting, right?
Right.
And that's something they're missing. But
But that
they
doesn't
score
seem-
highly in every other.
Yeah,
phase
that
of the
doesn't
game.
seem like so much of a drawback right now. At least as much as it used to be.
Yeah.
We were talking on the Discord, which you guys should be in, down in the.
Where do we have it?
I believe it's right down below us right here.
Yeah.
That shooting armies, for the most part, aren't taking over AOS like we thought they would.
Well, Nighthaunt does a good job against them because the heroes that you want to kill pass off their wounds to spirit hosts.
And
So
not just Nighthaunt, but a lot of new books are getting that sort of
Yeah.
bodyguard mechanic or anti-shooting measures, right?
Fire Slayers kind of have something to that effect too.
IDK, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
IDK wants shooting back. It's just sitting on the
Yeah.
sidelines like, please make it better.
Yeah.
And then I think you're going to see a ton of Sylvaneth right now. At the last
Absolutely.
tournament we were at, we saw 3 Sylvaneth lists. And the great thing about that book is there's a lot of cool stuff to do. Like, I couldn't tell you what the best list is. You can
It has Dirthu in it for sure.
Well,
It might have an
Imperial
Ethereal.
Dirthu is
Yeah.
extremely frightening. It gets a bunch of extra attacks, and then 6 Kurnoth Hunters with side that are charging +5 and teleporting all over the place.
On 3 or 4 or 5 rend.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a good, scary, elite shooting. It's kind of got everything. I don't think it's been figured out yet because the book came out so recently, right?
It's also the sort of army that's going to take people a while because the mistakes that you make are extremely punishing and extremely sudden.
Yes.
And the skill cap is very high in that army, but you're going to have a lot of games that are frustrating games where you're off on something, you miscalculate something.
Yeah, you
and
charge
get
out of a
punished really hard.
circle that is your
Right.
retreat. Yeah.
Or you just underestimate what's coming in. Most of the lists that are getting built right now for Sylvaneth are screen light.
Yeah.
Right. So there's going to be a lot of games where until those lists really get refined, they get punched in the mouth.
I do like -1 to hit and -1 to wound from those.
The Dryads.
The Dryads make a bit of a pain. Now,
Yeah.
that's mitigated somewhat by any attacks you get through are typically doing
Sure.
multiple damage
Yeah,
because of
wiping
bounty
them
hunters.
out.
But that they're cheap and they're hard to take off, so that's a nice combination to have.
And Tree Revenants, built-in teleport, being able to run them potentially as Expert Conquerors now up to 2 wounds makes it so that unless you've got a bounty hunters coming into them, they are much more resilient than they used to be for their points, and they're able to teleport onto an objective, grab it with 15 effective bodies potentially, and that could be really big.
I think Bone Splitters is back a little bit.
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
there's builds, it's really interesting. They don't care about their save.
Mhm.
They have a ton of models.
You say Bone Splitters is back.
A little
it
bit.
was hand so hard when the book
Yeah.
came out.
I guess you could say it finally showed up.
Yeah.
Sure.
We've seen a couple lists. Nick True was running 28 Big Stabbas
Right.
at our tournament, and then I think Tom Duan was running 28 and might have won Texas Masters with that. So 28 Big Stabbas, that could be the new meta, because you know what? They're always doing damage.
Right.
You can only do damage if you they get into you, they have enough rend, stuff like that, they do damage.
MSU is inherently good in Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
Because the way damage works, right? You need to finish off a unit. If you don't completely finish off a Big Sabba, it's still at 50% effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to overcommit to every unit, which means that with 14 units of them on the board, you're just falling short in a bunch of places.
And that's probably not the only build that we could see. The staring is still great from the Wargok Prophet.
Having a 4-up board for one combat phase is really powerful.
Pretty good.
And I think destruction in general has been really affected by the edition change. Like I think Iron Jaws are still fine, but I don't think they're strong anymore. I think they're fine.
They're fine.
Like you can easily 3-2 or maybe 4-1. I don't think you're 5-0 with them anymore. There's just too many challenges in the other armies they're facing.
I think it depends on your matchups, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Four Nighthawk players.
You're not.
Who knows?
Well,
And
I don't know.
fun.
We saw an Iron Jaws player this past weekend go 3-1 against Nighthawk.
That's true.
Yeah. Which is, I just played 4 Nighthawk players in a
Right.
tournament.
Unfortunately for him, he played 4 Nighthawk. Out of 5 games, he played 4 Nighthawk players.
Yeah.
That's just unlucky matchups.
And you have I don't know that everyone knew how to immediately neuter his army.
I've got a
you
lot
did.
more experience against
Yeah.
Iron Jaws than I think the average player has, so I had some tools there. We'll talk about that game later.
Yeah.
But in general, I think there is play from Iron Jaws into a lot of things that are good right now. If Skaven shooting becomes good, that is an army that typically has some difficulty screening well, because so much of what we see from Skaven shooting is maxing out Storm Fiends
Sure.
and everything they can do, unless you're running a bunch of Clan Rats along with them, and I think the best builds will.
Yeah.
But unless you're doing that, you're going to get those wins on Iron Jaws where you just punch them.
Yeah.
There's another army that I want to talk about.
Should we save it? Should we
When
tease it?
when we talk about our 5-round tournament.
That we used to talk about being one of the bottom armies.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean they were a bottom army, and
Yes, for sure. Maybe the
they're
worst.
Incredibly strong with rules that seem like they were written for one thing to work, and now it works completely different, and they are just strong.
I don't know about incredibly strong, but clearly we saw when piloted well,
Yeah.
they can get
Yeah,
there.
for sure.
Or even win the tournament, you know, if they're rolling well too.
And that's the best place for every army to be.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I mean, is there anything else we want to mention about in the meta right now?
Well, Purple Sun, we
Purple
kind of
Sun.
hinted at it,
God.
but Purple Sun right now, my experiences with it in tournaments have been, it's completely warped.
It's meta defining, right?
It is meta defining without question. You need to either have it or have some way to deal with it, or both.
Yeah.
And there are games where it fundamentally, on a dice roll, changes the course of the game in a way that maybe
Sometimes
nothing
you'll take
else.
out like 2 monsters.
Well, we'll talk about that in the tournament as well.
And
I
the
think
might-
it needs a change.
It might win games by itself sometimes.
couple issues I find with it. First of all, it's very easy for Nighthawk to take and have no downside.
Sure.
Second of
Yeah.
all, I don't see the need for it to benefit shooting armies. Like,
Right.
like I could see if it granted -1 rend in melee, but shooting when you can stand real far away from the Purple Sun and it's giving you all that extra rend seems a little busted.
A little bit too strong.
And then 1 out of 6 chance to completely lose. I mean,
We're
some models is
conditioned.
fine.
We're conditioned in Warhammer to think that a 1 in 6 chance is bad and unreliable and will not happen.
Yeah.
If you're doing it
But
every turn.
If you're doing it for every unit, every turn, not just every round, but every turn for every unit within 3 inches, you start to roll a lot of dice. And when you roll 10 or 12 or 14 dice over the course of the game, you expect to catch a couple.
Yeah.
When you're catching something on a battle line unit, fine.
Yeah, that's one
It's
thing,
not a big
right?
deal. When you catch it on a hero or a monster, suddenly the game shifts dramatically.
Yeah, and it's not like you had to put a lot of work or points to get that.
Right.
No. So you think they just put a wound cap on the auto slay and put a melee requirement on the -1 to save?
If I was going to change it, how I would change it today, and this maybe isn't the right way, but how I would change it today is I would say it's melee only, right? And then I would say if you get a 1 on the d6, you roll another d6.
Yep.
Anything other than a 6 is that number of mortal wounds. And then on a 6, it has the same effect that it has now.
What? Okay, that makes sense. So you're still only doing mortal wounds on a 1.
You're only doing mortal wounds on a 1.
So basically, the
Between
ability
1
is
and 5.
still mainly for the melee rend.
Right.
Yeah.
And
It's
then if you get the 1, you get mortal wounds, and on a 6 it's the slay.
Right.
So
Which
1 in
is
36 units.
potentially
1 in 36 instead of 1 in 6.
Yeah. More impactful for units, battle line units.
Right.
Significantly less impactful for,
Here.
I don't know, a zombie dragon or a terrorist.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is how I would kind of fix it. I think it's neat to have the auto slay chance. I really think that's a cool thing for every army to have available. I think as long as it's less common, then both you and your opponent can share in the fact that you just
Yeah.
got very lucky and this result happened. Versus the 1 in 6 right now, that's a 1 in 36 to catch 2 in the same activation,
Yeah.
which, if that ever goes off, things are going to get real bad for your opponent.
Talk about swinging a battle.
So it's just too high a chance. 1 in 6, when you roll a lot of dice, it's a big chance.
And the other thing we didn't mention is super cheap. Like 70 points is easy to fit into an
Yeah.
army. Like when it's 100 points or more, you got to start making some concessions. But 70,
You
everybody
can
can
tell
squeeze it in.
that it's too cheap when you see things like Iron Jaws starting to run and Arcane Tome and Master Magic so they can
yeah.
throw it out.
I mean, it's a brutal. It's very punishing, and it's very random how punishing it will be in a round. Except for those armies that don't care about the negative rend, and they're like, there's no downside here. I am just going to.
For my Night Hunt army, I was able to just throw it out in the middle. If I killed things, great, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
It was going to sit out there and just be this bubble of -1 rend, and I had no downside. They had to come into it to fight unless they could dispel it. Dispelling it on a 9 is a big
Sure.
ask for a lot of
I mean,
armies.
some people can do it, but I mean, a lot of people can't.
Yeah. I brought it. I'm gonna be honest. When I wrote my list for the 5-rounder, completely misread what the Purple Sun did.
Sure.
And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I thought you just chose a unit within 3 and rolled, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's like, I mean, it's not amazing, but it's
Yeah.
awesome. So I brought it because I couldn't fit a 75-point skink unit in the list. And then when I read it, I was like, this is probably the best choice I've made.
You think it was
on
better than that
accident.
75 point skink?
I feel like it might have done more work than 75 points worth of skinks.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it. I think I did.
Yeah,
There
I was
were-
at 2,000 exactly, so couldn't fit the 5 extra points.
There were multiple times over our tournament weekend where I was rolling for 4 units on 1 activation. So at that point, you're more likely to get one than not.
Yeah. I mean, it's too good right now. I don't know how long it's going to take them to change it. We could be like this until
the next FAQ, potentially.
which is supposed to be 3 months after the book drop. So
Something like that.
I mean, buckle in, do stuff like my strategy against it was just not to have anything that valuable for it to kill. Like
Right.
it could kill Zangor and Lighten, so be it. Those things die a lot anyways. But there's people that were running like, I don't know, 5 zombie dragons and Terrorgeists, and it's like, oof.
Yeah, this is
It's a
rough.
rough day. We see a lot of people starting to take up Knight Incanters.
Yeah.
Anything with an auto unbind. Things that have inherent magic resistance become more appealing, like dragons.
My dogs are
A little bit of a
clobbering
dog
down the
invasion
stairs.
here, yeah. Like Stormdrake Guard that have the built-in spell ignore, they can be pretty good against it,
Yeah.
although you're still losing one of them 8% of the time.
Even Archeon, like Archeon, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Arcan lately, but Archeon, like, it's nice to have that chance to.
Absolutely.
And if you take Zinch, you mark from Zinch, it's even better. But
And then there's some armies that maybe even benefit from it, like Khorne, for example, where
Yeah.
you can get to roll a bunch of dice to ignore it, hit those 6s, get your Blood Tithe, which is so much better now. People are sleeping on Blood Tithe.
like, hey, no spoilers, no
No
spoilers,
spoilers.
no spoilers.
Real good now.
Yeah. So Purple Sun, if I was going to change it, I would just put a wound limit on this auto slay. Like, anything 5 wounds or less, anything over D6 mortal wounds.
That would be a great enough change for me too.
I don't want it to affect shooting because I play shooting, so.
I love that you're one of those people.
Yeah. I'm trying.
How does it affect me?
Right.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm trying to be fair with the one rule, and then keep my keep my specialness.
It certainly makes you think about anytime you're running a shooting army. But I think at this point, anytime you're running any army, you have to start thinking about including it. But anytime you're running a shooting army, it is the best upgrade you can make for your shooting to add a rend to all of it.
Well, here's one thing. So we talked about this before, and I said I thought it would be good in KO, and you're like, it's not so good in
Sure.
KO.
It's
I
pretty
think
good.
KO throwing it out there and just getting an alpha strike in with the Purple Sun sitting in there.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a bad day on the other side of the table. So that's another reason that when you can deliver it and then immediately shoot, you're not gonna have much fun playing against that, are you?
Right.
Jake told me a story. This is an anecdote. A friend of his friend played in a tournament, KO against KO. Guy that had Zeppelin comes in, shoots off both of the other players ironclad.
Sure.
And it was probably like a unit of 10 Arcanauts. And the guy had to take a walk. He was so frustrated at it. So I don't want too many people walking at tournaments. We have a certain non-exercise agreement. So
did the Purple Sun not... was it at least shooting that took those things off, or was it the Purple Sun that...
Well, I didn't get all the details, but 2 ironclads and 1 round of shooting.
Right.
It sounded like it was a shooting. So.
Sure. Even worse if you got the one-on-one ironclad and then blasted the other one off.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
Anyway, Purple Sun doesn't seem.
We need a quick change. The one good thing is no one talks about the Incarnate anymore.
Sure. Meanwhile, the Incarnate and the winner of our tournament 2 weeks ago was running the Incarnate. Yeah. This is a combo that came out shortly after the Incarnate kind of dropped. He was running Tzeentch, and he had the Incarnate, and I believe it's a Fate Skimmer.
Okay.
The Tzeentch caster who, if he casts doubles, can cast again. If he gets doubles again, he's auto-slaying. Right? So, bound that to the Incarnate. Used Destiny dice to guarantee the 2 doubles. Killed the Fate Skimmer right off the bat. The Incarnate goes wild. Starts eating his own Umbral Spell Portals to gain levels. And so, watching him pilot that, where the Incarnate top of 1 goes to level 3, has a reliable source of incredible healing for the Incarnate, being able to throw out an endless spell, have it eat it, level up again. Watching that was the first time where I said, okay, the Incarnate needs slightly more than just a points change. Because I've been in the Incarnate needs a points change, but the War Scroll is fine camp.
Sure.
But watching that, maybe a little bit of a tweak to that particular rule, because it was very, very difficult to deal with.
Now this isn't, I didn't paint my hero bound to it, so it's automatically wild. This was at least a strategy built around it.
Perfectly valid within the rules. Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty busted and kind of gross. I mean, you're just praying they roll a 4 on their monstrous rampage to get rid of the endless spell, but 5-ups happen a lot.
Yep. Tzeentch can do this really easily. Cities of Sigmar, Hallowheart is the city that comes to mind, but any cities of Sigmar just run a sorceress. They can auto-slay themselves by just designating themselves. So either of those armies has an immediate path to easily get this this interaction rolling, and once it gets rolling, it can be...
Well, basically once an Incarnate is on 3,
right,
it's not going anywhere the whole battle. I mean...
Right. Once it's on 3, it's going to be a monumental effort to lift. But then if you can continue feeding it spells...
it's crazy.
Yeah, then it's going to be there for the duration.
So let's fix that too.
Yeah, just clean that up.
Yeah.
But props to the player who brought it. Did a great job. Took an interesting and somewhat risky tech, because there are those games where you throw that out, you roll that 4 on 2 dice, which is, I mean, it's not on. It happens. It happens all the time.
Sometimes you roll a 3 into a 2 and stuff.
Yeah, it's 6 and 36. It's a 1 in 6 chance that you're going to get a 4 and less on 2 dice. And so every time you hit that, you're down to level 1 on your Incarnate right away and probably losing it.
Yeah.
But props to him for doing it, having success with it.
It feels like a very Magic the Gathering thing to do, to like hurt yourself,
Yeah.
Right.
to feed your engine and keep it going.
Well, then the other thing is, it's not like he's naked otherwise. He's got all these
It's still
amazing
siege.
casters that
Yeah.
are throwing out mortal wounds across the board and really punishing you for sitting back. So, yeah, it's an interesting, good list that
For sure.
I don't think you'd win a 5-round tournament with it because sometimes the dice are just going to betray you, probably. But
Anytime that first roll fails you, you're going to have uphill sledding because you've given up a lot to that.
or you roll like 5 2s on your destiny dice and 4 3s, so
Sure.
you can't make sure that you're matching up. But yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Sure. I mean, the Destiny Dice scenario, at least you then just play a straight up game of Warhammer with your Incarnate, right?
Yeah.
You're not in a terrible
no.
situation,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So do you guys want to talk, or did you have something else on?
No, I was gonna segue.
Yeah. Okay. Do you guys want to talk about the 5-rounder or the 3-rounder first?
I think let's get into the 5-rounder. All 3 of us went to the 5-round tournament, which
Midwest
was the Midwest
Makeup.
Makeup. Yeah.
Yep.
Indianapolis.
Fantastic event.
Yeah.
And then just the 2 of us went to the 3-rounder, so let's talk about the 5-rounder first.
Okay. Indianapolis, great road paint.
Yeah.
Huge fan of scraping that off the side of my car.
Yeah. I mean, when you can go down there, pay all that money in gas, and have to get a new paint job, it's all
Yeah,
worth it.
it's ideal. So that's the 5-rounder. Let's go to the 3-rounder.
So the Dice Cast took a road trip to Indianapolis.
Yep.
It's about a 5-hour drive for
Yeah.
us.
Depending on Chicago traffic, which if you're not around
Right.
the Midwest is like LA traffic or New York traffic, it's what you talk about. Atlanta traffic, whatever.
Had a great time there. Got to meet some people that have been involved in the channel for a while. Coda and Jordan down there that we've been talking to for a while. Got to meet Kevin down
Yep.
there, and Mike Berezinski,
Yeah.
Kyle from Pants Mafia.
Yeah.
Got to meet him. Met a ton of
Tons of
people
nice
there,
people.
as you always do when you go to an event. So
Yep.
that was fantastic. And we got 5 great rounds of Warhammer. Right?
Huge play area,
Yeah.
which we weren't stuffed in at all. Plenty of room for people that showed up.
It
So
was
that
at
was
the
nice.
Game Preserve South in Indianapolis.
So
Yeah,
now let's start
that's what-
complaining. No. And then TJ was one of the organizers. I would like to give him a shout out because I know he put together the pack and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so I came in with my Beast of Chaos list, which is, just to sum it up, it's a Shaggoth, Shaman, 6 of Ogres, 2 3s of Ogres, 20 pack of Zangor, and then 2 6-packs of Zangor Enlightened with 2 Ungor Raider 10s to kind of build it out. Bounty Hunters are all the Zangor units, and then Battle Regiment, so I can, before dropping, hopefully be deciding more often than not. What about you guys?
I had Night Hunt, Scarlet Doom, what I think of as a very classic Scarlet Doom list now, which seems strange to say with the book being so recent.
Super
but
classic.
20 of Blade Geist, 20 Chain Rasps, 4 Mirmorns, 3 Spirit Hosts, a Krulgast, Guardian of Souls, Reikenor, and the Spirit Torment.
Do you remember when people thought Night Hunt were bad? Oh, you remember when Night Hunt
Yeah,
were bad?
I remember when they were bad.
Now it just seems like it was ages ago.
Remember, everybody has Night Hunt from like Soul Wars,
Yeah.
just sitting somewhere that are
Ready to roll.
Yeah. I brought Seraphon, Thunder Lizards, 2 Bastiladons, Engine of the Gods, a 10 of Skinks, a 5 of Guard, a 5 of Source Knights. I had a Skink Priest, Skink Star Priest, and Lord Croak. Oh, and a Scargun on Carnosaur.
Yep.
Because why not? And the Purple Sun.
The Carnosaur it should fit into every list.
Yeah, I was hoping with the Purple Sun I'd be able to get effectively 2 rend on the jaws, like it feels like it always should have.
Right.
But bringing Croak was an interesting, from what I'm told, an interesting decision. It worked out, but I love Croak so much, and I painted that model, so I'm like,
Sure.
I am bringing this thing.
Yep.
So how'd your first round go?
My first round, I was paired against Skaven. That was
Pete on Skaven?
Yes. That was an interesting game. I think he took first turn, but with Croak, you're able to deny his more warp power.
Yeah.
And kind of neuter the effectiveness of those Storm Fiends. Storm Fiends, is that what they're?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know Skaven as well as I should,
Yeah.
but with Thunder Lizards, there isn't a great, as far as I understand, a great target for Thankful to Lausch on a board and just start hammering into. So, kind of an uphill struggle for him. We were able to effectively bottom of turn 2 into 3. The game was pretty much over.
Yeah.
The Storm Fiends benefit so much from the Warp Sparks going to 2 damage on the Rattling Guns, and then, of course, Colas Seraphon just kind of ignores that.
Yeah, and we had his Croak being able to Comet's Call. I killed both of his characters that were, eat sparks and giving out buffs and stuff like that.
So you lost.
No, I won that game going into turn 3. It was an interesting game. Thankful's got a lot. A +3 to cast is, that's better than Croak.
+4 if he's near a null hole.
Yeah, I think he was +5 at one point because we had Arcane,
Sure.
Terrain feature, a null hole, and then him by himself. So, but Croak, I just rolled really hot on Croak's denies. It was like 11s and 12s the whole time to keep him off of that.
You gotta make sure your opponent has no fun.
I didn't get to cast Purple Sun. There wasn't like a great. So I was I brought this and I'm never even gonna use it because I would have just cast it and it would have been off in my own face. So, but yeah, that game was. Bastiladon's just shooting clan rats, making them take battle shock tests, and then the Storm Fiends. The Storm Fiends, Bastiladon's wiped out, I think, half of the unit, and another one ran, and from there it felt like a real uphill battle for him.
Sure.
So you started with the win.
I started with a win.
Nice.
Representing.
This is my first 2-day tournament, I should say.
Awesome.
First 5-round anything. So to be able to start off with a win, like all the pressure was off.
Sure.
I was like, this is the most relaxed I've been.
You had hit your goal.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Yeah, my goal was 1 and 4.
Right.
So I hit it to start. So I could only go. I was on house money the rest of the time.
Yeah. Oh man, that's just you just lay back and start having drinks at that point.
Yeah, but it was a really good game, well played by him. It was a real uphill battle.
Sure. Classic matchup in the lore, right? Seraphon versus Skaven. That's exactly what you want to see.
That ended the old world, I'm pretty sure.
Sure.
What about you, Justin? What did you play?
So I played against OBR and the eventual, spoiler alert, winner of the tournament, Michael. He was running a very magic dominant one. He had a Soul Mason, a Bone Dude, and Arcan.
And the Pokemon Shrieker. Yeah.
And he had the Liege Cavils.
Sure.
With a bunch of horsey bony guys, and
Sure.
then 2 20s of
you have this army.
2 20s of Mortai Guard, and then some Stumpers. So I knew right away I wasn't going to be getting any magic or stopping his magic in general. But so I think I kind of lost in deployment. So when I saw that he only had Arcan, my strategy was always to deploy the Hearthstone up as far as I felt comfortable that it wouldn't get destroyed. No one brings Arcan in because Arcan hits like a wet noodle, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but there was a little disagreement at the table when I said that. So I deployed him up with my 6 Dragon Ogres surrounding it. No one's getting through 6 Dragon Ogres, right? So I felt fine, but I deployed too far up. That was my mistake. Should have stayed back. I always intend to give away the first turn in general. Should have just stayed back. So he was able to get his horse guys. And
The Death Riders.
Death Riders, and right away. And I underestimated how much damage they could do with all their buffs and all the mirroring ones, +1 to hit from the Shrieker. Exploding, he had the weapon on it, so exploding 5s and 6s. So they shredded the ogres, just completely nuked them. Fine, I got turned. You don't want to lose 300 points or whatever, 250 right off. But I was able to get in then with my Zangor Enlighten and take off Arcan. So now I'm feeling pretty good. Like that's
Sure.
a reasonable trade for me. Lost about half the unit. Got the double, retreated out, But the issue is, even with all the Ren in my army, when you're attacking Mortek Guard and they are on, +2 to save because they've gotten Mystic Shield, and then they have their Norwin Ren from Petrifex, and they have their Shield Wall. I can have all the Ren in the world, they're not coming off the table because they're re-rolling. If they're just re-rolling 5-ups, they're still making half the saves.
And then with the 6-up to back it up.
Yep. So I felt really good when I got the double. I'm like, I can swamp the board and kind of take over this game. But I just couldn't kill Mortek, and they could kill me. Really, that's one thing about my army. My army dies, which is fine because I have a ton of wounds, but it dies. So he did a lot more damage. It was staying back and forth. Keep playing until the end of the game. There's always opportunities, right? But I think I got to bottom of 4, and the writing was on the wall at that point. I had like a Hail Mary attempt at the top of 4 that if I can wipe like a 20 mana Mortek, then kind of back on parity a little bit. But it didn't happen. I conceded at the top of his 4 when all his magic went off again. So, great game. He obviously knows OBR super well. He's been playing them for a long time. Way back, he did well with them at Brewhammer, which was back in February in Columbus. He's been playing them since. People say OBR isn't great with a new bounty hunter. I don't know. They have Ren, they save well, they do magic well. Like, they're fine.
OBR is always really good into melee.
Yep.
Bounty hunters is melee only.
Yep.
They're gonna accept against really exceptional Ren. I think there are times that Nighthaunt will pop off enough Ren that they can really kind of clean them and things like that. But except against really exceptional Ren, they'll hang around.
Yeah.
We should say this battle plan was a Nidus path.
Yes.
Sure.
So
interesting battle plan.
Yeah, I like that
so
battle plan.
we were deploying on opposite corners and
Yeah.
could teleport one unit from one side to the other, which I forgot to do both turns that we played with my knights. They just sat in the corner, and I'm like, I have to remember to put them there, and I forgot every time.
Yeah, but to sum it up, I think if I deploy more back in the corner, just have my 2 screens of Ungor Raiders up, make him waste his first turn trying to get in, so then my counter strike is way more effective. I haven't just given up 250 points. I think it's a much different game, but you live and you learn.
Yeah. So my round 1 was against Khorne, Blades of Khorne.
This is what we were going to talk about.
Yeah. So it was against Duncan, and Duncan ended up coming 4th in the tournament. So he had a tremendous showing with Blades of Khorne, leaning on all their new rules, and really pretty well situated into the new General's Handbook, it feels like. Obviously, the biggest change for them is the Gluntide doesn't reset when you spend it.
Which is just awesome.
Oh, it's amazing. It changes the way the book plays so much, and we'll get into that. But he had a Khorne Demon Prince, 2 Rage Thirsters, Scarbrand, Unfettered Fury, Reapers of Vengeance build, a couple of 10s of Bloodletters.
Which are good now.
Yeah, it's amazingly good. They pump out damage because they're fighting in 2 ranks.
Yeah.
Which has held them back forever, those 32mm bases. And then he had a unit of Gores, Khorne marked Gores. And the Khorne Demon Prince, which was my nightmare.
What are those dog things?
Flesh Hounds. Flesh Hounds. 5 Flesh Hounds, yeah.
Dog things.
Yeah.
So,
they're like the horsey guys.
Not a fan.
Horsey
Not a
bunny
fan.
guys.
Khorne Demon Prince is probably the strongest thing against Nighthaunt. Bloodthirster of Insensate Rage is maybe the second strongest thing into Nighthaunt. Those pieces, and he had 2 of those, those pieces were terrifying to me when he set them up. Nighthaunt plays in castles. It has to play in castles. You need those aura buffs to really function. And being able to come in with the Rage Thirster, if you do hit a 6 to wound, and hit everything in that castle is just brutal.
Yeah.
So he took first turn so that he could get his Demon Prince buff up, and then just kind of spread out and screened out all his heroes, or his Bloodthirsters. Reapers of Vengeance, for those who haven't played it, they've got the ability to double fight. Khorne gives them the ability to fight in the hero phase. He had an artifact to, on a 4-up, fight first. He had 6-inch pile-in from Unfettered Fury. There's a lot of things that start layering to make those combat monsters really, really effective. So I fanned out, and I attempted a couple of long charges and failed them on my turn in bottom of 1.
Did you get Purple Sun, or did he auto unbind it?
I failed Purple Sun. He didn't auto unbind it. I just failed the cast with +4. He then, I won the priority into turn 2, or round 2, and I took the turn. And this, I think, was but ultimately decided the game. I decided to open up on both fronts, or on both wings. So he had his Demon Prince Central, and I went in on both extreme edges. I thought that I could get more into his Thirsters. He had Scarbrand on one corner and the Insensate Rage, or one of the Insensate Rages, on the other corner. I thought I could get more into each of those than I ultimately could. There was some confusion on the side with the Insensate Rage about where models exactly were, because there was a big rock that he had moved on in turn one,
Sure.
and none of the models would stay on it, right? So we were playing this kind of, they're actually there.
It's here, but it's
Yeah.
not here.
So there was some debate about where exactly my unit could get to, but long story short, I wasn't able to get impact hits into the Insensate Rage. I wasn't able to get enough into the Scarbrand side to really be effective on that side. I did something like 10 damage to Scarbrand,
Yeah. Now you just
which
need
isn't
a man.
enough.
Yeah.
Right.
This War Scroll has a bigger number on it than 10.
Well, he was already at fighting at his best profile, fighting at bottom
Right.
profile for Scarbrand. So he mostly cleans the unit on that side. There's some fighting back and forth with that Insensate Rage, and I'm coming out okay there. And then he just kind of comes in with everything. The Rage Thirsters pop off a little bit, and I lose just massive numbers of body.
Sure.
I'm down 120 right away. He doubles me back, comes in with Scarbrand into my Chain Rasp block. Scarbrand does 24 wounds, mortal wounds in one activation against the Chain Rasp, so they're done. Things start to get really ugly. Nikon has a way of just kind of hanging on, though. I kept the Blade Geist around, Spirit Tormenting them, trying to get them back with Guardian of Souls, so I had some hang around. I started peeling off Bloodthirsters, killed off one of his Rage Thirsters and the Fury Thirster, and then Scarbrand. And then, so we're in round 4, and it comes to my turn, and I've got my Blade Geist and a couple of heroes in combat with his remaining Rage Thirster. And he's got relatively little left on the board, I've got relatively little left. Well, in my hero phase, his Rage Thirster fights, pops off some 6s, clears that entire bubble,
Yeah.
and then moves onto the objective that I had declared into to do against the odds on. So he cleared my entire castle and then moved to block the objective in my hero phase. And from there, we were just done.
Yeah.
I lost it at that point.
Well, that's why Corn is strong, though, right? Blood Tide
Absolutely.
is spendable a lot. Like, auto unbinds, you can bring on Bloodletters, who just said are getting better.
That just feels so bad to have somebody wipe something and then move on to your objective.
And your hero phase.
Yeah, in
And-
your hero phase.
And right now, there's no restrictions on it. There's nothing in the rule book that says you can't fight twice in the hero phase.
Yeah.
It
used to be you
nothing
didn't
there.
have any Blood Tide.
Yeah,
Right.
I know that seems like one of those things that they're like, okay, well, we don't have to specify this because Blood Tide resets,
Mhm.
and then in 4 years when they just make it so Blood Tide doesn't reset and don't bother to look at any of the rest of that stuff, they're like, I mean, I
Well,
guess
Corn
it'll
has been
work out.
terrible anyway, so
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not problematic. It's just
In fairness, I could have played the game better, and should have. There are some things I would definitely do differently. Maybe I get a win if I do those things.
Yeah.
So I don't think the book is problematic in any way. I think it's actually really great that the book plays that way. But when you're not expecting those interactions, it just blows your mind at the table, right?
Well, and I played Duncan as well, and he just pilots that army very
Absolutely, very good pilot.
well. Yeah.
when you know an army well, it's better than having a good army.
Absolutely.
So round 2 we played close to the chest.
Did we?
Yes.
Sorry,
I mean,
remember.
yeah, I'm reading it right here. So,
Sure.
round 2 we played close to the chest. I played Mike in his Iron Jaws, which you played later in the tournament, and he brought.
Bloodtooth.
Yeah, he had a unit of 6 pigs, another unit of 6 pigs, a unit of 3 pigs, a mega boss on Maw Crusher. I think like a 15
of our boys, and then the 2
and
War
then-
Chanters.
War Chantas, and a unit of 3 of the
Ripple
Grot
Snarl
Raving.
Fangs.
Yes.
Yeah. And Purple Sun.
And Purple Sun, yeah.
Yeah, because who doesn't think of bringing Purple Sun and Iron Jaws?
Iron Jaws.
When you can WA and go to 2 extra rend on that turn, that's real good.
Yeah. So we played. We both kind of deployed. I was way more cagey with my deployments because I played you with Iron Jaws a lot, and I know screen out and hope for the best. So I screened out with Knights, Skinks, and to some degree Guard, but I want to keep him around Croak just in case. And he deployed right on the line. I believe he took first turn and just came into me, got into me right away, and for some reason, Skinks died. Some of the Knights died.
Coalesce, I'll play.
But yes, yeah, for some reason.
Some mysterious reason.
But for the most part, I held up.
Sure.
And he got the all of my, for those of you who don't know with Coalesce, all of my terrain becomes deadly to enemies that are in my deployment zone. Deadly to enemies and mystical to me. So I'm getting 6-ups on within an inch of my terrain, and he is taking more wounds on 1s, which he rolled a lot.
Sure.
So it was the terrain was doing mortal wounds to the pigs. In my turn, I was able to shoot off a handful of pigs from each unit, and I was able to get the Purple Sun out there, and I think I picked up a pig in the first turn, and just kind of castled and stayed where I was, trying to weather the Iron Jaw storm and just pick off as many as I could. The unfortunate thing about my list, it doesn't do battle tactics very well.
Yeah, sure.
I can't, especially when he had me pushed so far into my own corner, I can't move, I can't get to his deployment zone, I can't really do anything other than eye for an eye against the odds stuff, like kind of gimme stuff.
Sure.
And he had deployed his unit of 3 pigs far enough away that they couldn't get in, so he was just using them to cap objectives. But he came into me again with the pigs, was able to clear off some more Knights. His Maw Crusher went hard into my Saurus, or my Carnosaur.
Sure.
And really with Mystic Shield and All Out Defense, I was able to weather a lot of his Maw Crusher attacks, plus the -1 damage. I think he did something like 3 wounds to me after my saves.
You hate to see it.
And then on my turn, I picked up a War Chanta and another pig with the Purple Sun.
Sure.
And it just, he looked at me and he's like, "Yep, that's what happens, I guess."
It's only 2 around.
Yeah. But that game, once I was able to finish off the pigs, and I should say his grot riding little dogs, I can't remember what they're called, did finish off a Bastillodon.
Oh,
And it was the coolest moment of that whole game, because I was like, he has 1 wound left, and he charged into him with the dogs.
Sure. They've got the 6-inch pylon, so probably activated.
Or yeah. And then was able to do 1 wound and knocked it off, and I was like, this is the highlight of the game, I think. But after turn 3, I was able to clear off the rest of those pigs. He retreated his unit of 2 pigs, that was 6, back to try to cap the back objective, and his unit of 3 came forward. And I started moving kind of farther over. My Carnosaur had killed a pig and was able to run a charge for the rest of the game, so went after the 2 pigs that were off in the corner objective. Which he said later he should have tried to deny that grand strategy that I had just by going off in the corner, and then the Bastillodon that I had left, and the Engine of the Gods, which summoned 5 units of warriors this tournament.
Sure.
And 3 times I did not have a place to put them.
Sure.
Which is
It
quite
can be very
unfortunate.
restrictive when you're pended.
Yeah. But we were able to kind of shift the Engine of the Gods over and just take over the objective grabbing game at that point.
Sure.
And he had 1 chance right at the end to charge his Arboys in, get him into my deployment zone, cap the objective that the Engine of the Gods was sitting on, and deny me my grand strategy, deny me my battle tactic, and get his grand strategy. And I was able to, in my shooting phase, summon a unit of 10 warriors onto that objective, and from there, and then he failed his charge. My Carnosaur wiped out his pigs off in the corner.
So you got there.
I got my battle tactic, I got my grand strategy, and I won by 1 point.
Nice.
So it was the closest game of the tournament. Mike is just incredibly good with that army, and
incredibly fun opponent.
Yes,
like,
it was great to play against. Yeah. And we were both looking at the game, and I'm like, I don't know how. Coda came by over and over again, and he's like, well, you lost this. Like, this is, I don't know how you win this game. And then you come back, and it's like, all right, it's closer. And then the Purple Sun takes off the war chant, does a couple other things, and he's like, how is this? What happened? So, incredibly close game.
So you got to 2-0.
I got to 2-0. I doubled my projected wins for the tournament, and really, I exceeded my expectations basically for a 2-day tournament. Your first one, to be able to go at least 2-3 was big for me, and I was super excited.
Awesome.
Especially against an opponent that's so well versed in his army.
So I had started off 0-1. Don't want to start off 0-2. Got paired against Feck. So Blister Skin, very fast, very mobile, teleporting around. 2 Ghoul Kings, one on Terrorgeist, one on Zombie Dragons, 6 block of Horrors, a couple units of Flayers, and one of those units may have been summoned in. You lose track of what's summoned in.
We were super happy you guys didn't play each other in the second round.
Right.
Yeah, originally we looked at pairings and it was...
Yeah, they released
Nick tried
test pairings
right.
of you two playing each other, and it's like, well, one of you guys is going to be 0-2 to start, and then luckily that didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen. So I deployed super conservatively, he deployed super conservatively, and then in turn 1, he made me go first. Made sense. I moved kind of as little as possible. He moved kind of as little as possible. And then I won the very important round 2 priority roll, gave him turn.
Sure.
Right. So he then pushed forward a little bit because he needed to start taking objectives. I had gotten a battle tactic right off the bat. So he pushed forward a little bit, and then I doubled him back. So 2 into 3 double. I set up for it in round 1. I came in and wiped a bunch of screens and killed a unit of Vargulfs, Deep Struck, so that I was in position to take off another, not Vargulfs, Flayers.
Sure.
Deep Struck, so that I was in position to take off another one. Got the priority roll into 3. When I did that, my big block of Blade Geist was able to get into his Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, which was the one thing in that army that I was really afraid of.
Sure.
They get into it with the Purple Sun there supporting it. I cast Purple Sun in round 1, or in turn 1. And that thing was just marching across the board. It wasn't eating anything, but it was just making its way. So by the time I got to the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, the Purple Sun was there to back me up, lifted that. In order to get into it, I pulled in the Zombie Dragon. The Zombie Dragon just started eating my Blade Geist, but I was perfectly happy with that trade. On the back of that double, he kind of lost enough material there, where at that point it was him playing for points and fighting his way out. And, he, at one point, buffed up his unit of Cryptors so that they were on 7 attacks each, and I had hung my heroes out with no screens or protection, charged into 3 of my heroes, the Torment, Guardian of Souls, and the Krulgast, and those Cryptors going to 1 damage from the Krulgast.
Yeah,
it just, I could see his frustration as those attacks went. I kind of knew what was coming because...
Yeah,
I played
you built it that way,
right? But I could see his frustration building as those attacks went, and he split attacks, and as soon as he did that, it was like, well, you're probably not going to lift anything.
Yeah.
And so I held on. He wasn't able to get enough back after that initial double, and then I just kind of cleaned up over the rest of the rounds. Super fun opponent. Really, those 2 priority rolls in a row, right? 1 to force him to take the turn, and then 1 to turn that into a double was kind of the decider.
Yeah. My turn 2 was against, or my game 2, was against Christian on IDK. He was running kind of the shooty list two sharks, one shark, Leviathan, Lotan, the Tidecaster, and then 2 tens of reavers, as well as 3 birdie boys. Those guys that fly from
Aether wings.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was 4-drop as well, and I didn't win. I didn't get to decide priority, so he obviously had me go first. My only strategy was to put the Ungor Raiders and then 2 3s of Dragon Ogres over on his side. So he had to kind of like deal with them before he could start getting into me. And then I kept my 6s of Enlightened way back, and I...
Pardon the dog thunder.
Yeah, I deep struck in my Zangors behind him. So, like, the exchanges of, like, material early were super bad for me. Even though I hit my charge with the Zangors, I wasn't able to kill 1 shark. He got into the turn. He took off. I think I was able to keep, like, 1 of each unit of Dragon Ogres on, like, 1 model. So that would slow him down. He doubled. Then he came into me, got rid of the Dragon Ogres. And then he like, 1 shot off the Shaggoth, which I was just, like, floored by. And then... basically, Austin and Jordan walk over, or Austin and Dakota walk over and start telling me how garbage I am and how bad my army is.
Sure.
So then also
the sort of friends you need.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, now I am got to
You're
win
locked
this.
in.
So basically, what happened was he just wasn't able to like really wipe me on turn 3, and my summoning was so good that I started putting a lot of stuff behind him. And one unfortunate thing for him is on turn 3, he's got to fight before my Zangor Enlightened. So they got into Reavers, so the Reavers just kind of wiped him. And I mean, he was playing well. It looked like he had the game wrapped up in turn 3, but just with everything I was summoning, the way I was able to dance behind him, I started controlling all the objectives, really, other than the ones he was directly on, and his army's elite. So as he loses these sharks, I just ignored the Leviathan because I knew I couldn't do anything to him.
Yeah.
So as he loses the sharks and loses everything around the Leviathan, he has the Leviathan and 2 foot heroes left, which just can't cover the board like I can. So I was able to get there by like 1 point in turn 5. It was a great opponent. I will tell Christian, you don't need to be nice on the table. Don't start, like he wanted to like give me charges I didn't make. No, you don't have to do that.
Right.
Like, don't feel bad. Just win your game and then be nice afterwards. Or play it politely. You don't need to be nice during the game. Just play your army how it goes. If you're going to pound someone, pound someone.
You should be friendly.
Yes.
But you don't need to give him an advantage.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't take any advantages, and I don't think he played poorly to help me. But you just play to the end, keep playing, and games will decide themselves. And as long as you're a nice guy and a good opponent, I don't care. Like I might get more determined when I start losing on the table, but I'm never like
especially if you're getting
mad.
heckled.
Yeah, right. I'm never like mad or sad about it. Whatever, I lose, I win. So that was great.
So round 3 was then the worst battle plan in the book.
Yeah, controversial.
The Lurkers Below, which is like the old style knife to the heart, or that style battle plan where if you hold all the objectives, you win.
Yep. But has a very different way to control objectives.
Right. You can't control objectives round 1, and then you can't control an objective further on the board unless you've controlled the prior one. So you have to step your way through them a turn at a time.
Yeah, and the wording is very specific. You can't contest objectives until
Right.
you control the previous objective.
Right.
Which I know there was some conversations about contesting and controlling.
The honest way to play this battle plan, if you know the rules, is you just get everything on the middle objective, and the person that wins that slog in the middle will probably win
Win the game.
win the
Yeah.
game. But you make them have to do that, and maybe you retreat onto their objective, so all of a sudden they're not, But it's all going to happen in the middle.
There are ugly ways that you can play it too, like if you get a battle tactic ahead, you just camp your home objective. If they can't move you off your home objective with your entire army, you just kind of win on battle tactics by the end. And
It's
things like
not it's not pleasant because it's confusing too.
Right.
My opponent and I. Should I just get into my match?
Well, let me.
Yeah.
I want to touch on 3 things I hate about it. One, it was confusing. There was a bunch of people that had questions about it, uncertainty about it. The judge got called a ton, and even when it was explained, people didn't really feel good about it. So confusing. That sucks.
Yeah.
2, it's an auto-win battle plan, so you're there to play 5 rounds of Warhammer or play through a game. There are a lot of ways to cap objectives in sneaky ways now, but whether it's proving grounds, expert conquerors, or anything else that you can just grab an objective with and win the game. And then 3, 30-inch deployment for no particular reason, which is way too far for slow melee armies.
Yep. It wasn't great.
Yeah.
Not great. I mean, I don't blame anyone if you didn't have a ton of experience with it, which I don't think anybody did.
Right.
Because nobody plays it.
Yeah.
I wish it had been a different battle time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it skews the battle tactics and grand strategies and stuff because you
Can't control first round.
yeah, you can't control first round. You end round 3 potentially, so
Right.
so your battle tactic number, your tournament points are super low. And,
Yeah. So get into it.
Yeah, so I played Joey. I mean, I'm not going to get too into the details. He had a really good list, though. He was running a Naru, I believe, Sylvaneth list that had Lord of Leaves, Hilariel, and
Lord of Leaves. The
Queen of Leaves?
The
Army.
The Lady of Vines.
Lady of Vines, whatever.
Just
Lord
make
of
up your own.
Yeah,
please.
I will make up
Lord
my
of Leaves.
Lord of Leaves, Queen of Vines.
Princess
She's got
of
arms
Perch.
that go like this.
Sure.
And he had a Durthu that was really cool. It
Sure.
had the artifact that, maybe it wasn't an artifact, command trait that made him ethereal, and artifact that gave him extra attacks.
So
right,
3 up Ethereal, Durthu. Tough to
right
get.
away I knew I wasn't going to be able to kill that.
Sure.
That's just
Yeah.
where it was. We had a lot of fighting go on during the game. I was summoning stuff behind him. I was controlling. So the end got super weird. I had controlled my middle. I had controlled the middle in the prior turn. So if I win the turn 5 priority, I just get on his objective and I win.
Yes.
If he wins, all of a sudden we're like, well, what the hell do we do now? Like, that's where we got to. It's like, he had Alariel and Durthu left, and I had some random units of Summon Enlightened and my big 6 block of Dragon Ogres that he had to kill for his grand strategy. And we were like asking for like all these, because he can't, the only one he can control at the end of this turn is his own.
Right.
And it just got really
And that
confusing.
meant that one of his 2 big combat monsters
Yeah.
had to sit back on his own objective instead of doing something useful. Super awkward.
It was really weird. He probably didn't make the ideal decision because we were all very confused about like what was going on. And then on my turn 5, I ran some stuff on. He didn't redeploy enough off to block off, and I controlled his objective turn 3, and I won.
Sure.
I understand now why I won, but at the time, I like only understood why I won because there was like everybody in the room standing around us and like
Saying you won.
trying to advise us on what to do or what he had to do, and like
Well, and I think both of you, I could see at the end of that game, that you were both frustrated at the outcome
yeah.
and how you got there.
Well, I was fine with the outcome.
Well, sure.
He was frustrated with the outcome, but I wish it was just a different battle plan.
Right.
Like that we
Just
all,
play it straight.
because you're playing kind of weird. You're doing stuff that you wouldn't do. You're putting like I summoned early just so I could get my first battle tactic. I put out 3 Ungor just so I could control something in his territory because otherwise it's super hard to get a first turn battle tactic. So, I mean, we had fun.
Yep.
I had fun.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a great opponent, and he's in our Discord now, which
Won
is really
best
smart
order.
to do.
Yeah.
Just down below, and he ended up winning best order. So, yeah, I mean, like I say, just don't include that, and we'll all have fun. We'll have fun at the tournament.
I was surprised to see it, and after playing it, I hope I never see it again.
Yeah. So how did you guys do?
I played against Kyle from Pants Mafia,
Okay.
and he was on his death-themed Fire Slayers,
Oh,
which
cool.
looked beautiful. He ended up winning Best Painted at the event.
Nice.
And a very, very nice-looking army. He's done a lot of conversions in it. His Hearthguard look awesome.
Sure.
But with a 30-inch deployment gap, Fire Slayers are not known for their explosive speed.
No.
My Night Haunt, I had my 20 Chain Rasps in Expert Conquerors, and so I just pulled them into the Underworlds, and I knew at some point they were going to deep strike and take an objective that was going to be clutch in this battle plan. I then just started moving forward, and I was really worried about his Hearthguard with poleaxes, so I tried to isolate them with a charge, and I was able to make a good charge into them. He and I went back and forth and really hashed out all of the interactions between the Fights Last from Night Haunt,
Sure.
and
The fights first from the charge unit.
he's got Fights First from the charged unit, and he's got the retinue so that the Rune Son or Rune Father can have the unit fight after them. All those things interact together. So we really had an awesome discussion of at a couple points in the game, how exactly this is going to break down with different interactions, and that was really educational, and I enjoyed having that experience with Kyle. I got into his units of Hearthguard. I was able to lift the poleaxes, which I was really scared of, and then he swung back with his Rune Father and Hearthguard with the broad axes into one of my units of Blade Geist and killed 3. They had a Cruel Ghast up. They were in Bounty Hunters, so they were 3 damage attacks, down to 2. I had the Cruel Ghast there. I had -1 to wound from Shade Mist, and I had Seal of Shyish for a 5 ward. He kills 3, and then at the end of the combat phase, I have the absolutely crushing revelation that I get to return 3 models to the unit. And so my combat phase early on there went much better than his. So top of 2, I take my home objective. He takes his home objective. Bottom of 2, his turn, I take the center objective because I've pushed him back so far and he's so slow.
Yeah.
Right. So he can either send the Magma Droths out on their own to that center objective, or hold his castle back and ignore the center. So bottom of 2, I take the center objective. I win the priority in round 3. I deep strike in those chain rasps, push my entire castle onto his objective, and deep strike the chain rasps. They make their 9-inch charge. So I've got something like 70 effective bodies on that back objective.
You really have to fight.
We roll out the dice, and he shakes my hand, right?
Yeah.
But it was a very unsatisfying game. I would love to have played Kyle on a battle plan that we would have had 5 rounds on, that his monsters would have got involved on. On his turn, he did bring his Magdroths into one of my units, and we had like a great interactive battle where there was some back and forth, and he lifted one of my 20 Blade Guys. Felt great. It was the sort of battle that I would have expected for most of that game, and we just skipped effectively half of the game.
Yeah.
So that was frustrating, but I got the win. So at this point, end of day 1, I'm 2-1. I feel great about it.
Yeah. So I played against Duncan with his corn list.
That's not only.
Well, that's what everybody told me. But when you're playing against an opponent who is very good, and you play very poorly, it turns out you can lose auto-win games.
As it should be.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, real quick through ours, he won the roll-off, gave me the turn. I moved to a point where I could hit him with the Bastillodons, shot into into 2 of his Bloodthirsters, lifted nothing at 3 damage apiece.
Sure.
I was rolling 18 dice with one of my Bastillodons, and I think I sent through like 2 total saves that he had to make. So really disappointing turn for me. He was able to pull forward. Neither of us, and I think I failed my battle tactic too, because you can't control your first objective. That's like a perfect one for against the odds if you could control the objective, because you have such a big deployment zone gap. But I won. He came forward, and his turn won. Didn't get. I think he got his gores in, but I got the priority going into turn 2, and was able to shoot off 2 Thirsters. So I'm like, okay, I've kind of I've made up for my horrible first turn.
Yeah.
I had the Purple Sun out. I picked up, I think, a Bloodletter, and I was able to get some wounds onto his Demon Prince of Corn, which wasn't really a factor in that game for me because I'm not making a whole lot of charges, and he kind of kept him back onto some terrain. And then from there, my army just disappeared.
Sure. Corn can do that.
The Bloodletters completely wiped the Bastillodon.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of mortal wounds going from them now.
Yeah. He was able to kind of position his other Bloodthirster and Scarbrand along the outside where I was going like just center left, getting onto that middle objective. He was able to bring Scarbrand and the other Bloodthirster around. I shot Scarbrand off in turn 3, and he brought the Bloodthirster into my objective that I had Croak and the Guard and Engine of the Gods on. Summoned in some Bloodletters, brought his demon dog things onto the objective, and just won the game outright because he had more models.
You come here because of our knowledge of it.
Yes. His demon dog things.
Sure.
So another, if I play that game, I just play it where I sit on my objective.
Sure.
They can come at you and just
and we talked about it afterwards, and my thought was, I have to get battle tactics or I'm going to fall super behind in tournament points. Looking back at it, like 4-1 would just be better. So I might as well just sit on my objective.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if he was able to get 4 Thirsters into me, then...
And if you castle up too hard, then those Rage Thirsters, when they do pop off, end up cleaning your...
Yeah. But I moved just far enough that I was missing my 6s from a mystical terrain. I was really putting myself out there with the Bastillodons, trying to get shots off, and then any double turn would have just completely ruined me. He didn't get the double, but then he had, his Blood Tithe auto unbinding Croak spells,
which can happen multiple times per phase.
Yes, being able to fight twice and all that stuff. So it was really a misplay from the start for me.
Sure.
And he just played his army really well.
Yeah, he's great. He's awesome with coin. So
yeah, and he was great to play against, like as a person.
Yeah,
not just with his army.
So all 3 of us, after 3 rounds,
2-1.
Ended the first day there.
Got some Japanese steakhouse.
Yes.
Oh God.
Ate way too much. Yeah.
Some people were rolling home rather than
couldn't move.
rather than cheap lifing at home.
Yeah. That's where my where I got yellow paint all over my car.
Hung out, drank some beers, got to bed. Day 2. We're not going to talk about round 4 because there's no reason to talk about it.
Sure.
I want to talk about round 4 so bad.
We're gonna.
It was
So the good news about round 4 is we can divide how much time we're going to talk about it. I got paired against the filthiest player at the tournament, running some dirty night hunt
Degenerate.
Yeah.
So we were playing Won't Back Down. Long deployment again, 2 rounds in a row. I gave Nick first turn. I had shifted my Ungor up. Good thing to note, Ungor don't necessarily capture objectives that are on first turn. You roll off to decide it.
Weird rules interaction. Yeah.
Long story short, Nick, you overloaded your right-hand side of your deployment.
Yep. I held
everything.
10 blade guys on one side, on one objective, and then my entire rest of my army on the other side.
And I did the more balanced deployment where I did put a bunch of stuff around the Herdstone, but I deployed that a little bit further up. And but I did kind of like layered screens with Ungor, then Dragon Ogres, then my Zangor and Lighten behind them, and then on the other side, instead of having the 6 Dragon Ogres, I had the 30 Zangor. Sure. Basically, Nick gets my first turn. I don't really kill a lot. I get into your back area, but
yeah, you came into my 10 blade guys with 3 summoned Zangor on disc.
Otherwise, I didn't really move in. I was really trying to stay behind a screens. You were able to battle shock off some Ungor with a tricky arcane bolt, which
so inspiring the command ability happens at the start of the battle shock phase. Arcane bolt can be released at the start of the battle shock phase, but on your turn, my arcane bolt is after your inspiring. So arcane bolted after you had the opportunity to inspire.
Now I could have triumphed at that point, but first of all, you don't typically triumph to save Ungor Raiders.
Right.
And second of all, I just wasn't thinking of it at the moment. So Nick comes in.
So my 1 arcane bolt, long story, killed 4 Ungors.
Yeah. And then with your minimal amount of shooting, you really whittled them down to like 1 guy.
Right.
So then Nick comes in with like 10 charges. Mm-hmm. Essentially gets every buff off.
Right. Into 6 Dragon Ogres and then 6 disc
Yep.
Yeah.
And
do you think he cheated?
Slightly.
Just check.
I hit roughly average numbers on the charges.
Well, when you roll as many charges as you had, it's just gonna do stuff. So he gets in, pretty much wipes my whole side of the board. So then in my turn, I come in with my Zangor Enlightened, and hopefully my Zangor as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that might not have been.
No, the Zangor would have turned later.
And my 6 Dragon Ogres. And this is the thing with Nighthaunt. If you are sitting in the bubble of the Cruel Guest, even if you're in Bounty Hunters, if you can't set up the attacks just on them, you don't have enough units to force, or you don't kill enough in your first swing.
And I had, so you came in with your Enlightened on disc, the unit that you still had remaining, into my Chain Rasps.
Yep.
They were the screen I gave you, right? And they had Shade Mist on them, -1 to wound. And there is no better debuff in the game than -1 to wound.
Right.
There's one profile on the Zangor Enlightened that I think wound on 5's base.
Well,
right?
it's their beaks, but yes.
Sure.
So they're wounding on 6s. So.
But for all your profiles to drop those wounds, there was a point there where I piled in with Reikenor away from your Zangor to force them to not have something that had activated near them.
What I really needed to happen was the Dragon Ogres to spike their attacks.
For sure.
They're not very good attackers, but I needed them to spike to kill Reikenor or something, so that all of a sudden now Nick has to attack with his Chain Rasp into my Enlightened, which in turn, now even though I'm -1 to wound,
You get the
reroll all fixes a lot of this.
For sure.
I didn't get that, so I'm fighting with a relatively debuffed, and I just don't remove. Even though I get the double, I fail like a relatively desperate charge with my Zangor. I rolled a 3 to get in. I needed like a long bond charge, so I re-rolled it.
Right.
Nick hex
The
my
3 would
dice.
have made it, but you wanted the long.
Yes, I wanted to get back and like set up another layer of screen for you to deal with. I rolled a 2. Yeah, it's gonna happen. Nick hexed my dice, and then I went through the motions on the fighting, but I made another mistake with the Dragon Ogre that ended up I rolled the 6 to battle shock it off. If I would have just fought with it into a unit that had already fought, all hurt gives +1, or basically reduces your battle shock by 1. I wiped the unit with some Zangor Enlightened and didn't let my Dragon Ogres fight. So.
And that only mattered if you did hit the 6.
Yeah.
One was going to run. But
when you make a mistake,
right,
you get punished.
You get punished.
Yeah.
And that was your battle tactic, was
Yeah.
to have them for barge.
So at that point, when I didn't get my battle tactic, I would have kept fighting the good fight, but when I didn't get my battle tactic there, the writing was on the wall, so we called it.
Yeah, Nighthaunt felt really strong in that situation. It felt like with you, one of the advantages of being high drop is that you get to watch your opponent's deployment.
Yeah.
You spread out your deployment for both sides. I then just overloaded one side and said, this is where I'm going to go. And that meant that I was fighting your army a little bit piecemeal.
Yeah.
There was also a moment when you chose a proving grounds that you probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, I changed my mind on the proving ground, and then Nick was able to like charge and pile.
So.
What about your round 4?
My round 4 went very interestingly. So I was playing against Theodore, I think Ted, everybody called him Ted.
Yeah.
With his Soul Blight.
Sure.
So he was running Laukovai, Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, Vangorian Lord, 2 Terrorgeist, a Zombie Dragon, and 10 Skeletons.
Full Monster Mash, Avendori Dynasty, very cool list.
Yeah. And I've played against Terrorgeist a lot. Axerfet on Discord, he plays Terrorgeist, and I know how bad it is to get just mulched up by those bites. So I deployed as far back as I could. And I stayed exactly where I was pretty much the whole game.
Sure.
He brought his entire army forward on his turn. He took the first turn. And I was able to shoot down a Terrorgeist and get some wounds onto his zombie, his Vampire Lord. And the same way that you were saying, by the way, where you have a model on somewhere it can't fit, we had to do the same thing.
Sure.
And on his next turn, he charged into my Realm Shaper engine, destroying it, kicking the skink out. Luckily, the skink priest stayed alive, but got his Vampire Lord into my knights, which I was screening out the Bastillodons with. Was able to pick up the knights, fairly easily, as
Yeah.
you should. Got a Terrorgeist and a zombie dragon into a line of skinks, and then Laukovai along with came forward, and once they killed the skinks, got into the guard in the same turn, and the Terrorgeist was able to try to attack my Carnosaur, which was being screened out by the skinks, and I was like, okay, well, Carnosaur's dead. Carnosaurs are not typically saving a lot of wounds. He took one wound with a Terrorgeist.
Terrorgeist fluff often.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I had never seen before. I didn't know that could happen.
Well, in fact, they're typically fighting twice and buffed on their attacks.
Yeah.
So much more threatening.
Yeah.
So.
And at that point, I had shot off one Terrorgeist. So he had a Terrorgeist, Zombie Dragon, Laukovai, and his general, which was the Vampire Lord.
And you're fully
into
pushed
my
back
line.
into a
Yes.
bubble.
And I am at the first 6 inches of the table, basically. And then I cast Purple Sun.
Oh, that seems like a strong play.
And Purple Sun sits behind. I actually cast Purple Sun the turn before, but got it behind the Terrorgeist and the Zombie Dragon, and roll a 1 for both of them. Pick them both up.
The 1 in 36.
And I've never had someone. I felt so bad.
Sure.
And he was so awesome. He's like, it happens. It's a dice game, man. And I'm like, I don't like. This is a point where you might pick up your stuff and walk out. And he was just like, he was so cool about it. But
he knows about the agreement to not walk.
yeah, yeah. At that point, then the two Bastillons were able to shoot off his Vampire Lord.
Sure.
So it was just Laukovai into the guard, and then the Carnosaur came and finished her off. And I was able to start marching up the board because of how far he pinned me back. And this is kind of my issue with Seraphon, the way I built him, is I did fail. He was basically wiped by turn 3, and I still failed my 4th turn battle tactic because I had nothing I could do. I couldn't get into his deployment zone for barge. And I couldn't, there was nothing I had left that I could do anything with because of, I brought the guard were my GV, they moved 5 inches.
Right.
So even running them, the best I can do is 11. So I'm trying to get them as far up as fast as I can. But just the Purple Sun, I've never had 70 points completely change the game like that ever. And
that's an unlikely roll, but you roll those enough, it happens.
It happens. And then while we were we were rolling out our last turns, but he had 5 skeletons left, and I was making sure I didn't kill that unit because I didn't want him to bring it up on a gravesite in my deployment zone and deny me my grand strategy. As we were talking it out, I forgot to move the Purple Sun at one point, and it was sitting next to my Carnosaur. And he even said, he's like, oh, just move the Purple Sun. And I was like, I forgot it. I rolled for your stuff. Let me roll for my stuff. Picked up the Carnosaur. I'm like, that was the most effective I've ever seen 70 points. It killed a 230 point Carnosaur, and then the Terrorgeist and the Zombie Dragon. So I lost. I felt like I firmly lost that game until the Purple Sun firmly won me that game.
Sure.
So
which is why you bring it. But oof.
Just such a
brutal.
Rough.
But awesome. Brutal but awesome. Everybody will be telling that story long after Purple Sun's been nerfed.
Yeah.
The Purple Sun it took off 2 of my monsters. Yeah, no it didn't. Yes, I swear.
Dakota walked by and he's like, I saw the table and you were done. And what happened? And I was like, Purple Sun, dude. That's the way it goes sometimes.
So you got the 3-1.
I got the 3-1. I am so on house money at this point. I'm betting everything.
Right.
And I left the tournament because if I lose to Nick, I don't play. No.
Yeah. He would have left, but he's not allowed to walk during the tournament.
Yeah, and no one would give me that early ride home that I was asking for. I had a Jeep life at home, and these guys sitting on 3-1s don't want to leave. So.
Yeah.
So round 5?
Why don't I start? I'm 2-2. I play my friend Jordan, and I'm just gonna say this: when you play 2 days of a tournament, when you get to round 5 and you're both 2-2, sloppy shit happens.
You're
Even
exhausted.
if you're a good player,
Yep.
sloppy shit happens. So, Jordan and I are playing. He gets his current off. He's running awesome Sylvaneth. He's got the new Revenants. He's got the new Spites. He's
The Lancers and the Revenant Seekers.
yes. The Revenant Seekers are in a 6-pack.
Mhm.
Or the Lancers are in the 6-pack. Whatever one's more
Bunch of
he's in
bugs.
the 6-pack.
Yeah.
And then he's got the Kurnoth and the Tree Lord Ancient. He's got a 6-pack of Kurnoth
With
size.
size, right.
And then he's got the City's Hero that can give you +2 to charge.
Channel Mage, yeah.
So his whole first turn he sets up, he drops wood about 4 inches left of my Ungor Raiders, and he buffs these Kurnoth the High Howl. And then he moves within 9 of my Ungor Raiders. And I know he's setting up to deploy into this scenery piece, and then he's going to wipe out like half my army on the charge. And I roll a 3 and I shut it off.
With the redeploy.
Yeah, with the redeploy. And it pretty much just kills his entire first turn. And I mean, obviously he gets rid of those guys with his flyboys, and but you know that was
That's the risk of the new Sylvaneth, is that it's so easy to shut off that terrain.
yeah. So if you don't know, if the enemy is within 3 of that terrain piece, you cannot teleport into it. So right away I was in a good spot. He couldn't get his battle tactic, and he was able to control the objective.
Sure.
He got 2 points because we're playing Prize of Gillette. You pick to activate, and then I had okay turns, and he one more mistake. He's probably gonna kill me for bringing this up. He charged his Kurnoth out of the 9-inch bubble
Sure.
to be able to strike and fade.
Right.
And he realized it as soon as I started attacking him. He's like, wait, why am I getting attacked here? And he's like, oh. And I had 2 units of Zangor and Lightning on Disc that were now both fighting second, and those Kurnoth then stand up. And we basically called it after that.
Round 5, 2-day tournament. It's easy to start, especially with a relatively new book. You don't have a lot of reps with it. It's easy to make that kind of mistake.
Yeah. And I mean, I guarantee if I play him at any other round in that tournament or any other day, he never makes mistakes because he's a conscientious, great player. It's just I catch both these guys, Dakota and Jordan, in round in the last round of 2-dayers. I can't be beat.
Sure.
Because it's all the drug that I'm doing to keep aware,
Sure,
and they're
sure.
not. So what you do. So I was happy for 3-2. I always want to finish with a winning record.
And you did.
I'm never expecting to necessarily go 4-1 or 5-0. 3-2 makes me very happy. I'm happy to go home. I have stuff I can improve on, and that's what I need to do.
Attitude, I think, is the thing you have to improve on.
Yes,
You know?
horrible attitude. Horrible attitude.
What'd you play in your 5th round?
No. You go first.
Oh, you want me to go
Yes,
first?
yeah.
Okay. So I played against Sam with his Nurgle. It's the one matchup I really did not want to see.
16 flies, right?
No, I think he had
12 in
13.
Bellicor, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had 13. Order of Afflictions in Bellicor.
Sure.
And
Strong
Just a
list,
casual
strong
list. Just
list.
casual.
Yeah. So in Prize of Gillette, he's able to choose because he went second, and Bellicor one of my Bastiladons, and chose an objective that I just, even with my run, I was not able to control. I ran some skinks onto it, but he was able to stop my one Bastiladon from moving, and that pinned my other Bastiladon back. So I had to use my command ability to give it fly and let it run and charge, and give it +1 to hit, and give it reroll 1s to hit, and then run it past it to try to be able to salvage something from one of them. And he had moved his whole entire army forward with the 8-inch pregame move.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that, but because I had to auto run 6 with the Bastiladon, I only rolled a 5 with my skinks to be able to grab the objective, and I was like half an inch out.
Sure.
So realistically, what a stupid move for me.
Sure.
but I didn't realize at the time that I was that far away. And then he rolled a 2 for the Bastiladon that he Bellacored to shoot. So I was able to shoot. I took off a couple of his flies, and then he just spent the rest of the game keeping me in my area, strategically picking objectives that I could that I could never get to.
Going second in this is a huge advantage because you get to activate the objective, so you can really screen someone in and keep them off.
And you get to activate the objective and call Proving Grounds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're playing against an army that doesn't have Proving Grounds and you go second, you can say that objective's active. You can't take it.
Yeah. So he had it. He played that game super clean. My dice rolls were really good that whole game, and I got him down to at the end of battle round 5, and we had the points had just skewed so far his way. I think it was 18 to 9 at the end of round 5, and I got him down to 4 flies.
But you almost tabled him.
That's I got him down to 4 flies, and I was like, you know what? I will gladly take this as a consolation prize. So,
and you ended up denying his grand strat and some of his scoring as well, right?
I think he got his grand strategy at the end, because he was able to peel off my skink priest, and then he had more in my deployment zone than I did.
Sure.
This would have been a great time for any kind of teleporting unit like Chameleon Skinks to be able to play objectives, and I just didn't have it. I didn't have a way to control the board at all.
Sure.
So I was kind of at his mercy, and he played a super clean game, and kept me exactly where he wanted me the whole game. So.
So
good for him.
3-2.
3-2
record.
for
Congratulations.
first today.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
I was super happy with that.
Yeah. So my round 5, I got paired against Mike and his Bloodtooths. Same army that you played against. Nighthawk, obviously, Purple Sun wasn't going to come out from him. But I've gotten a ton of reps against Iron Jaws against Justin, and other players as well, but I played it a bunch against Justin. And so I knew, I felt pretty comfortable in my ability to give a good game into Iron Jaws. I deployed a couple of things on the line. He was a 3-drop with a couple units of pigs and bounty hunters, so I deployed a couple things on the line that I knew I was going to pick up. So effectively giving him no information except bad information, right?
Yeah. Pick up and redeploy.
Pick up and redeploy through the underworlds,
yes.
right? So put him on the line. I mean, he was smart enough to know that wasn't really where they were going to be.
That's bait.
But then I got to watch him deploy his entire army. So he sets up everything. I deploy as conservatively as I possibly can in one corner with my castle, with my screens, everything, and then pick up those 2 things that I had on the unit or on the line. He looks at me in a corner, knows that he can't really get to me or be effective. If he can reach me, he's just going to go into chain rasp. It's not where he wants to be. Gives me first turn. When he does that, I then barely push forward enough to touch the objective, and I deep strike my unit of Mirmorn Banshees about 9.5, 10 inches off his front line.
Which is just absolutely brutal.
It is. Within 12 inches of his mega boss, 6 of pigs and 3 of pigs.
So what does this mean?
They cannot.
Mighty Destroyers get effed.
Yeah, well, it means that his Mighty Destroyers can be charges.
That's not what you want to be doing.
And if he attempts them, they are 9-inch charges or 10-inch charges that you can't reroll because you're in the hero phase. You don't get +1 because you can't wah in the hero phase.
Well, and it's 4 wounds. You don't care.
And it's 4 wounds. You don't want to use. So he does Mighty Destroyers so that he can move the 6 block of pigs that's on one side and kind of, because they were way away from where anything was going to happen. So he moves those forward. He attempts the charges of the other ones because he might as well. He gets 3 uses out of that command ability, and fails those charges. And so then his movement phase is also bottled up because I've got this string of Mirmorn Banshees across the middle. And so he kind of moves around the edges of them.
It's really, I feel like I never hear people talk about this weakness of Iron Jaws, how easy it is to shut off that turn 1. You almost, if you know an army can redeploy within 9 of you, or 10, within a foot, you cannot take first turn, or you have to take first turn, and if they're deployed back in the corner, you're like screwed. So like it's such like it really neuters that army so hard.
Absolutely, I felt really good about it when I was able to lay that out. And of course, you know, I'm not pre-measuring these things, but I'm eyeballing them, and I think I'm going to catch almost all of his army with this Mirmorn, and I did. So he comes in. I mean, he obviously blows up those Mirmorns. You know, they're not coming back.
Oh no.
But then he gets the 6 of pigs that had come on the free side, and the 3 of pigs into my chain rasps, and that's all I'd really given him behind the Mirmorns. Well, the chain rasps were on -1 to be wounded. I discorporated them for a 5-up ward. They're in -1 damage bubble, which cancels out bounty hunters. And suddenly,
if you roll some 5-ups,
you roll some 5-ups. You know, then they're a 5-0 5-up, and suddenly they just kind of hang around. He killed most of them. He killed something like 12 of them. But then I get 3 back, and that's really not where he wants to be. Meanwhile, he's pushed things up in general. I throw out the Purple Sun. He's wandering around there. I think I maybe lifted an Ardboy, something like that in the first round. Over the course of the game, it lifted an Ardboy and a pig. But it's just out there giving an extra -1 Ren to all of my units. I crash everything into the pigs, lift both of those units of pigs.
yeah,
Right. His Mega Boss then comes into me and comes into 20 Blade Geists that are in the Cruel Ghast aura with the debuff, the Mega Boss. He crashes into Reikenor with Spirit Host behind it with the pigs. And I made he ended up killing Reikenor to the wound with 4 pigs. I made so many 4-up saves. He ended up killing him, so I didn't feel bad about the fact that my save rolls had spiked as hard as they could. But I made so many of them. He, again, killed something like 10 to 12 of the Blade Geists, or not even that many. He killed something like 5 to 6 of the Blade Geists with the Mega Boss. But then that unit of Blade Geists fought back. Purple Sun was there, so they were all on 2 Rend, and they did something like 14 wounds to the Mega Boss on his turn. And so then I get turn. I crashed into the remaining pigs. The Blade Geists that were there, I just left them in combat because I didn't want to give them a redeploy. They finish off the Mega Boss, and at this point, the writing's kind of on the wall. I grind down the rest of his things. My Blade Geists charge into his Ardboys with 6 of my Blade Geist block, and then the rest of my Blade Geists into his pigs. Those 6 Blade Geists in Bounty Hunters kill 11 of his Ardboys, and then he's going to fail Battle Shock on them because I'm terrifying. So he ends up triumphing to keep them, but that 6 of my Blade Geists effectively killing 15 Ardboys just felt devastating at that point. And, it was a situation where I knew the matchup really well. I knew what I could do against it, and I knew I could put him in a very awkward position. So I felt good about how it played out. But it was also a situation where my army matched up extremely well against him, and kind of got me there on the back of how I had built it.
So 4-1.
4-1.
Where'd you finish?
I finished second for the event.
Best general.
I'm super happy about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wise Lieutenant is what they called it.
I'll call it best general.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a sweet. Well, put on the bling.
Yeah, I've got the medal here. So second place for the event. It's only my second 5-round event.
Yeah.
And so to get second was absolutely incredible. My one loss was to the Duncan, who finished 4th.
Well, I only
I feel
lost
great
the
about.
People that finished 1st and 2nd.
There
so
you go.
Technically, I think I had the best finish of anyone, but
Yeah, I'm looking at the placings here. Our friend Austin came 7th.
Mm-hmm.
I came 8th, and Justin, you're right behind me with 9th. Now
the
I don't
die
know,
is fast is impressive.
Yeah, no, I don't know if 9 is better than 8
But,
nowadays.
I mean, for all 3 of us to come through with a winning record.
Yeah,
felt
that's super
amazing.
successful. It makes the
Super
car ride
great
home
event.
happy.
Yeah.
It means you Jeep life, everyone. Which,
Yep.
look it up.
The old Jeep wave.
So we'll wrap it up real short. We had an event in West Bend at Hobby Nights, West Bend, Wisconsin, ran
Great
by
new
Sean.
place, right?
Yeah, they've just moved into a bigger venue. I know they're looking at the possibility of running 2-day events, 5-round events. They've got the space for it. They've got enough space. I think they could get 80 players in that venue once they get all the tables there. It's huge. Really excited about that. I only got 2 rounds in. I volunteered for a bye because there were missing players.
Yeah.
Went 1-1 in that. Lost in the mirror, and then got a big win against Andrew's Soulblight. My Purple Sun ate a zombie dragon.
Oof, that feels
So felt really good about
really,
that.
It feels
yeah.
really good.
And you did well in that event too, right?
No,
not so
I was on the back half of that one.
Sure.
Yeah, I went 1 and 2. I lost
with
to,
LRL.
Yeah, with Lumineth. I was playing Lumineth instead of Seraphon. I lost to Nurgle. I lost to Dave with his Seraphon, and then I won against Xander with his Idneth, which was like an Idneth huge models list.
Sure. Like
Turtle,
Mash,
Incarnate,
Eidolon, and
So it was.
Shout out to everybody who came out for it. I think it was a very fun
Local
event.
community's blowing up really.
Yes, our local community I think has maybe doubled in size.
And people
over the
coming
past
from
year.
Chicago.
Yep.
That's awesome. We talked about that Zinch list that one. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
Our buddy Jake took second place with
His
Slaves
first
to
3-0.
Darkness. Yep.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Slaves of Darkness, Archeon. Knowing turn priority in this edition is really good.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say, battle tactics, we were really concerned last time we talked about them.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's plenty of battle tactics to be able to get. Now, I'm not. I almost think like it's fine.
In my wins, I got every battle tactic that I had that I had turns for, except in the auto win battle plan where I finished in 3, so there was no 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So it feels like they're a lot more makeable than
We
what we
initially
thought.
thought.
Yeah, my list wasn't built great to do battle tactics.
Sure.
So I dropped in my wins. I think one of them I maxed out, and then the other 2 I dropped the battle tactic both times.
Sure.
So I mean, as long as you have it in mind while you're building your list, you should be okay.
Sure.
I just didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, well, the big lizards. I don't run the big lizards.
No.
Uh,
But they're obtainable. Like
Yes.
they're not as bad, and I think the new edition is fun. Pick the right battle plans, and you'll have a great time.
I think the one thing that's holding back my unreserved appreciation of the new edition is bounty hunters.
Yeah.
I want to see that bonus toned down, +1 attacks instead of +1
That
damage.
was still really good.
It'd still be incredibly good, but it would be a manageable
Yes.
level of good. +1
Plus
damage
when-
is just too. It's something you can't mess with.
Everybody brings 2 War Chancers for
Yes.
a reason when you play Iron Jaws. It's just such a strong buff. Like,
yeah.
and it really kills the whole point of this edition where
Right.
Galatian veterans are supposed to be great. I was avoiding them completely. A lot of people are bringing the minimum just to have a proving grounds.
Yeah. And we were talking about +1 to wound or
Yeah, there's a bunch of
anything
different
else.
buffs they could do. I think any of them would be fine. Damage is the one characteristic you can't mess with. Most things you'll get maybe a 20% increase in damage, a 40% increase in damage, maybe a 50% increase in damage. When you increase the damage characteristic by 1, oftentimes you're increasing damage by 100%.
Yeah, it's brutal.
I gotta next 2-day we do. I gotta figure out how you guys remember everything that you did, because I'm going through these games and I'm like, did I even play this game?
I spent like 6 minutes talking about my total, so I mean, maybe I remembered it, but
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's the events we've been having. That's our thoughts on how the meta is shaping up.
what are your
and how we
thoughts
feel
on the
about it.
meta? How are you guys feeling?
Leave us a comment. Let us know how your games have been going and how the new General's Handbook's shaking up for you. How's the Purple Sun been for you? How are you getting eaten by it? Or are
You only
eating
have
with
4 months left to
Right.
play this GHB, so you better get to it.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for conversation again. If you want to be part of the conversation and talk back at us, obviously the comments down below are a fantastic place for it, but you can join the Discord, which is linked down below as well, and there the conversation never ends.
I love the Discord.
Yeah,
I
you
do
really any time
It's
of
popping
night.
off.
Yeah.
Any time of night, everybody's talking about Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
It feels like the game is as popular as it's ever been. So.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And last thing about Indianapolis, the best part about going there and doing the tournament and everything was meeting all the people that we talked to on the Discord.
Right, for sure.
It's like you have friends before you even meet people.
Yeah, it was crazy because you guys were talking to everybody, and I was like, how do you know all these people? And you're like, well, actually, it's the first time we've met. We're talking on the Discord all the time now. So
Yeah.
I run into the problem where I forget people's real names and I just think of them as Final Flash.
Yeah.
Kevin Ironjaw.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Kevin's easy because
Right.
Kevin Ironjaw. But yeah, so it's definitely awesome to meet people and jump in the Discord if you want to get in the conversation.
And play in 2-day tournaments. It's first of all, it's nice to travel with your buddies. Second of all, if you have the right, like, if you don't care, you're gonna have fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go
try
there,
to do your best.
Try. Yeah.
But don't worry if you go 1-4. Don't worry if you go 1-5. We have a buddy Joel, who we should mention. He took the wooden spoon.
Yep.
Austin built him the absolute worst Nighthawk list that
Oh
anyone
man,
has ever
it
built
was
in history.
so bad.
Brought an artifact that was absolutely useless and made him bring about a command regiment, so he was more drops.
Austin built a command regiment into the list so that he could have Midnight Tome to auto cast an endless spell, which he didn't have.
In his...
So
he goes 0-5. He has a great time wearing
claims
his
the wooden spoon.
wearing it proudly. It's
Yep.
like Zach Joel, awesome dude,
And
awesome.
Joel
attitude.
is the kind of guy that in 3 months will be stomping people at tournaments
For sure.
because he's done it in other game systems. He's just making his way into Age
But he had an
7.
awesome time. Never got his head
Absolutely.
down. Was as fun as anyone to be around. So.
And that's what the wooden spoon is all about, and that's what competing at tournaments is all about, right?
Yep.
You're there to play games,
And
learn,
never
be
trust
better,
Austin.
and grind it. Yeah. Well, that's the most valuable lesson of all.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Night, everybody.
Night.